Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Opportunity Room. I'm Luke Cutchinson, and I'm here with my guest, Nathan Hoole. Nathan, good to see you.
Good to see you, Luke.
Nathan is a private investigator and also runs his own podcast called Diary of a Private Investigator. To kick things off, take me back to the beginning. What made you become a private investigator? How did you become one?
Okay. Quite boringly, I was in the police for 20 years, as expected. I soon realised that I wanted to be a detective. That's where the serious and complex investigations are. So I was on the beat for about 3 years, and then for 17 years I did various departments, and then latterly I was involved in the covert world of investigations. I was surveillance trained by the police. I ran a few major operations. I say major. I thought they were pretty decent. And then I came out to become an enforcement agent, which is a bailiff in old money. Right. It's not the be all and end all, but the money was decent. And then I kept still doing surveillance for other companies. And then what I found is that a lot of the companies out there that purport to be private investigators are actually consultancy companies. So when you ring up, you might want a plumber, an electrician, a private investigator. It's all the same company with a different face in, and then they sub the job out. So I was getting jobs from these type of companies and getting paid minimum wage, and then I was being directed to do stuff that tactically were wrong. So I just had a light bulb moment and thought, why the hell am I working for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing when I've got all the experience, I've got all the expertise? So Dulles Investigation was formed 6 years ago, and I've been running it ever since and never looked back.
So, perfect. What was your first big job?
My first big job in the police or as a private investigator?
As a private investigator.
So
yeah.
It's actually one of my better jobs because it was great for two reasons. One, it taught me a lot about how to run a business, and the second one was because it was going undercover in a massage parlor.
Brilliant.
So it was doubly good. So from the business point of view, it was my first major client. So they basically hired me for 2 lots of 12 hours over the weekend. They paid me the money, and I was absolutely delighted with. I was like, oh my god, I've got all this money. This is brilliant. So I did the weekend working, and then mistakenly, because I got so excited, I offered him the fact that if you book amount of hours, I will give you a discount on future hours. And what it turned into, because the investigation went on for a couple of months, what it then turned into is that what you'll find in business, or certainly what I find in business, is people just want to chip away at your prices all the time. And when they're a regular customer, I was finding myself obliged to knock a bit of discount off. And then fast forward 6 months, I was suddenly driving an hour and a half away from home for, I think he got me down to about 2/3 of my original price. Yeah. And then he reduced the hours that I was working. So I was driving an hour and a half to do 3 hours worth of work, to drive an hour and a half back to do a report. And then when I looked at what I was getting paid, it was minimum wage. So it taught me business lessons about offering discount, bulk purchases, things like that. So that was that lesson. But the other one, the bit that probably people want to listen to, is going undercover into a Thai massage parlor. And the script was they were getting divorced, and he believed that she had a load of money squirreled away, and he was trying to find out where this money was because it would affect the divorce settlement. So I had to go in to have a massage, and I had to try and get the massage from this particular client. And whilst, if anybody's ever had a Thai massage, they dig their elbows in and you walk, literally walking on you, and you're like cracking it. And I'm going, you worked here long? How long have you been doing this for? And I got all this script, and it was like, oh, how many staff have you got, and how much do you charge? And I'm trying to have these conversations by being like manipulated and cracking. But the best thing about it is I went in, so the first time this particular woman isn't working, so I have to go in and style it out and have a massage with somebody else. Then I go in again, and it's somebody else, and then I go in, and then one of the scripts. I know we've talked about whether this is a PG rated podcast or not. You might have to edit this bit out, but part of the script was to try and work out how much money she earned,
right,
and whether it was cash or card, to see what was going through the books, obviously for the financial. So at the end of when I finally get this woman. We have this massage, bearing in mind it's been recorded for evidential purposes. I have to ask her for
an happy ending.
A happy ending. To which she then sort of says, oh, I don't do it, because she owned the place. And she was like, no, I don't do it, but I'll go and get, for example, Sue. I'll go and get Sue. She'll do it for you. And then obviously I'm sort of married, and I'm like, so then I'm backtracking going, no, it's all right. I was only asking. I said, oh, to be honest with you, I got carried away. It's something that my friends do all the time, and they say I should do it, but now I feel really guilty. And look, I'm married, and no, I don't really want one or anything like that. So I had to backtrack. But yeah, that was fun times. That
brilliant. So on a day-to-day, how do you sort of get your clients? Is it through networking, or is it word of mouth?
For me, I have quite a niche business, so majority of my business is through the website.
Okay.
I do get referrals, so I do jump on networking, but I liken it to being like a divorce lawyer. So if I start going around going, here's my business card, people look at it and go, oh, why would I ever need you? And I sort of say to people, well, keep my details, and then if you do need one, you've got my details, but people aren't really forthcoming with it. So the website's the main thing, but referrals, and I actually get quite a lot of repeat business, which I was...
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I was surprised about, because once people have used you, because I've got a broad range of... It's not just surveillance of cheating partners, which is what everybody naturally assumes that's what you do. There's a whole array of what I and my business can do for you. So once you realise what we can do, people think, oh, actually, I need you for this now, and actually, I need you for that. So yeah.
So through your website, is that through like organic search engine optimization, or do you do paid ads?
I started off doing paid ads, but what I was told by the experts who know about these things is that the minute you stop paying for them, your website just drops right down. Right. So the same amount of money that I was investing in the pay-per-click, I invested in a SEO company that got me onto, originally with a friend, I built my own website, and obviously then questioned why I didn't appear anywhere in the world, like page 100 or whatever. Realised about the SEO world, hired an expert, they got me onto page 1 within 3 months. But then it's obviously I'm trying to compete with the big companies, like I say, that have got a massive budget because they've got work streams left, right and centre. So I think currently I'm about number 4 on page 1, which I'm happy with that, because I can't compete. It's like Premier League in football. You can't compete with certain clubs.
So is that for example, Private Investigator in X, like in this area, or is there a certain key term that you sort of try and rank for?
Yeah, so the key search engine is either Private Investigator or Private Detective. Mm-hmm. Private Detective is more of an Americanism. Right. So people in this country do use it as a search tool, but per se we are private investigators. So you have to do your keyword search to see what people are searching for, and then target that, and then obviously that then gets you up. So like sort of cheat. I've done one of my highest performing ones is how to hack into WhatsApp, which is a bit of a trap because you can't. Right. But it's a commonly asked question. I get a lot of inquiries about, I suspect my partner's cheating. Can we hack into WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or his text messages or whatever to read it? And the very, very short answer is no. Yeah. There is a longer answer. It tends to be if you've got a couple of million in the bank or you're a Saudi prince, then yes, you can. Or if you're Rupert Murdoch, allegedly, you can. So it can be done, but for Joe Bod on the street, it can't really be done. Yeah. But I get asked.
So you capture people by writing an article based on can you hack WhatsApp, and then you sort of promote yourself within that page. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like a search. So you'll get people who just Google or whichever search engine they use, they'll type it in. I've got another one that performs quite well, which is how to find a listening device. Right. So a lot of what I deal with is, like I said, people just go, oh, cheating partner. My background is in the police. Part of it was dealing with domestic violence. So I've got a good understanding of domestic violence, coercive, controlling behaviour and everything that goes with it. So what people don't realise is that it might be a cheating partner, or it might be somebody that's split up, but then we can search, we do what we call a bug sweep, so we can go in and search for listening devices, because you'd be surprised that when, and it is more often the man that does it, when they leave the address, they might put cameras in there or listening devices, because they're so jealous or controlling and think the partner's cheating, they want to catch them. Or it might be for voyeurism purposes to then publicise it and embarrass the person. There's all sorts of reasons. So it's good, in what I do, it's good to have that law background, because there's a lot of law involved with sort of not only just GDPR. There's offences that we could commit, that they could commit. I get a lot of inquiries for tracing people. I had one literally this week, which was, can you track somebody down? Yes, but I have to ask the question, why? What are the circumstances? Is it justifiable? And it was like, oh, he owes me money. And that's what everybody always says, because it's a standard, oh, they owe me money. Oh, okay, then tick the box. Yeah, well, you can hire me. But you have to dig a bit deeper. So it was a case of, all right, well, what does he owe you money for, and what are the circumstances? And he was like, it's to do with property. And it was a really woolly, fluffy answer. And again, part of my background is you listen to the voice at the back of your head or the hairs at the back of your neck, and you're like, this doesn't fit right. So I was like, all right, yeah, I can do it. This is what I charge. And he's like, yeah, I need a bit more information. I was like, well, what information do you need? And he's like, I need to know if he's got neighbours. I need to know if he's got animals. And you're like, oh, and then he says, and I need to know what security systems he's got. And I'm like, mate, are you for real? Yeah. Like, you basically want me to stake out an address for you because you're clearly going to go around and do something a little bit dodgy. Yeah. I was like, no, you're not for me, mate.
That'd be that. Yeah. Do you get a lot of strange people like that come through?
Particularly, you do. So you'll get people like that. You get people who are trying to track down their ex-partners, and again, that's dangerous ground. I turn down quite a lot of work. You'd be surprised, because I am morally comfortable with where I am, and the last thing I want is the boys in blue smashing my door in, seizing my computers because I've done a trace and that person's turned up dead somewhere. Yeah. So I will ask lots of questions, do due diligence, and if I'm uncomfortable, I don't take the work. And what they don't realise is that the majority of private investigators, we all know each other, and so we'll put it on the WhatsApp group saying, watch out, if you get a phone call from this number, I've done due diligence and they didn't pass the test, and we'll block them out, and make it really difficult for them to hire somebody. Yeah. So yeah, you got to be.
That's good. That's protective, definitely.
Yeah. There are, and like every company out there are the cowboys. Yeah. There's a couple of companies out there that I could tell you now, and they're just dodgy, and I dare say,
take anything on.
Yeah, they'll take anything on. Yeah. And I've had customers come to me who have hired them, been given a report, and the report is clearly just been made up. Yeah. It literally is just, they've just sat down and typed any old waffle onto a page. The client's got the product and thought, I don't quite understand this. Come to me, and I've read it and gone, they haven't done anything. I'll tell you now, they've done nothing. What you've asked. So going down another side avenue, the problem. So the private investigation company in this country at the moment is unregulated. Right. So after this meeting, you can set up a website if you want, saying Luke Hutchinson, private investigator, Hutchinson's Investigations, hire me. Have a Gucci website, and people will come to you. So if anybody's thinking about hiring a private investigator, again, you need to do your due diligence. You need to know what their background is, whether they're genuine, whether they're a member of any associations. So there's a couple of associations out there. The ABI, Association of British Investigators, of which I'm a full member. There's the IPI, there's a WAPI. They're the main sort of three. With those, you are vetted, you are interviewed, and they will ask for products of your work. And only when you pass all that can you become a member. So I would say to anybody wanting to hire a private investigator, check out people's websites and check people out to make sure that they're good at what they do. It's an interesting business.
So you've said catching cheating partners. Can you give me some other examples of work you do?
Yep. So at this moment in time, I'm dealing. So we get quite a bit to do with childcare issues. So we've got. I'm dealing with one that the suspicion is that one of the partners may be mentally abusing the children because they're going through a split. So it's a case of doing the follow-up to monitor the welfare of the child. It's also turned into that one of the partners may be working cash in hand, so it's going through the courts, and this financial aspect of declaring your earnings so things can get divided.
Oh, yeah.
I've had one very recently, which again is not paying money to the CSA for childcare, so going out working cash in hand. That's quite common.
Well, and then like under declaring what you're earning, so you're not paying as much in child support.
Yeah. Well, declaring that they're only on £7,000 a year when actually they're on £40,000-50,000 and working 5 days a week. But the way that the world is, and certainly in our country at this moment in time, a lot of people now are wanting to go cash again. Obviously, we went contactless, and then the pandemic came out. People hit hard times, and I think on the back of that, people have realised that if you get cash, it can be invisible and you don't have to declare it to the taxman. Yeah. So there are obviously people out there committing fraud and not declaring tax. So it's a double. So one, they're committing fraud offences, and secondly, they're then not paying the CSA to the children just to be spiteful and weaponise the children to their partner. Yeah. So we do that. I've got a trace. I was on a missing person on Friday. To find that was a child's gone. I say a child, they're in the 20s. I'm showing my age. Somebody in the 20s has now gone missing, so I'm trying to find that person. So we sort of do investigations and that. Like I say, every day is different, which is why I like it. Yeah.
Coming back to what you said about the tax evading people, basically. So say you get a situation like that. So you caught someone that's misdeclaring their income, they're lying to CSA. What then happens from there? What's your duty? Do you have to sort of report it? Like, what's that process like?
Yeah, so again, it helps being a police officer because you are trained in how to do proper reports, proper statements, evidential things that will stand the test of questioning. So ultimately, when I produce a report and give it to the client will pass it on to HMRC. But if ultimately I'm required to give evidence in court, I've done that. I was a detective, came out as a detective sergeant, so court does not faze me in any way, shape or form. So you will get a professional turning up with professional evidence that can stand the test of questioning. That again, this is things that you need to think about when I'm hiring a private investigator. Am I hiring somebody who's just been on a 1-week course on how to be a private investigator and comes out with their iPhone and thinks, oh, look at me, I've got my iPhone, I know what I'm doing? Or do you go to somebody like me who's got kit for days, I've got £1,000 worth of kit over years that I've accumulated and has all the experience and the background as well to do it? These are the things that people need to be aware of.
So what sort of kit is part of your daily toolkit? What are you using?
Okay, so big debate about phones, whether you should use or not. You can use your mobile telephone. It's more natural, but it cannot be your sole bit of recording equipment. It's got its limitations. Right. So we've got more so now we use camcorders as opposed to cameras. Typically, if you see an advert for a private investigator, they've got a telescopic lens about 3 feet long out of the window. And oh, look at that. We don't. You can use them. They tend to be better for sort of night shots, things like that. But predominantly, we use camcorders because they're just as good. And also, if you're dealing, another popular thing that we deal with is false injury claims, staff sickness. So you'll need video evidence. So if somebody's claiming a back injury, and they're walking around Tesco's doing Tesco Big Shop, a photograph might not capture what a video will capture.
Yeah, I've got you.
So we've got that. You should have covert cameras. So cameras that look like everyday items, and there's a mass array of different bits of kit out there, that whether it's a coffee cup, a I mean, they started doing vapes now. There's phones,
camera vapes?
ties, power banks. If you're looking in houses, you've got smoke alarms, power cables, extension cables. There's you name it now. You can get cameras in anything. So I would expect an operator to have at least one bit of covert camera. You then got your trackers, your GPS trackers, which we fit to vehicles. We've got drones, what we use. I've got a drone in mind, and then all the little things that you don't think about, like your portable power bank, your main power bank, your change of clothes, your costumes. It's not you don't put on like a false beard and glasses, like things like that, like a newspaper with 2 holes in. But you'll have your everyday guises that you would expect to see down the street and not really bat an eyelid. There's a phrase that we got from the police: overt to be covert. So you may have got like high vis jackets on, pretending to be a workman or something like that, whereas you stand out from a million miles away, but people just go, oh, it's just a workman. So you've got costumes like that.
Makes sense.
Without giving too many details away about what I've got, but you'll need an array of outfits. So in my vehicle, I've literally got a big box of kit, and then I've got a big box of, and then you got things like, everybody sort of says to me, oh, but it's great, I'd love to do a private investigator, but it's brilliant. And you're like, ask me that in winter when it's -5 and I'm sat in my vehicle, can't have the heating on, and I'm literally having to put a little fan onto the windscreen to defrost and get the ice off the inside of the windscreen. I'm sat there in 4 layers of clothes, and then I need a wee. In the pitch black dark. It's not sometimes as sexy as it sounds. So you've got the warm wear, and then you sat there in your pants and you're sweating with sweat dribbling down your back, and you sat there and people go, oh, it's great being a surveillance operative, and you're like, yeah, it's great until I'm baking in my vehicle in 100 degrees when I can't put aircon on, and I'm sat there literally saturated. So we do some good jobs, but we also do some unsexy jobs.
I've got you. What's the legality about putting trackers on cars and things like that? Is that like perfectly allowed?
Oof, that's a big question again. That's one of those. Oof. Right. So, again, sort of from a policey background, everything that we do has to be justified and proportionate. So, you then, again, another good way of learning about it is that if you know about the harassment, the stalking laws and the legislation around that, we have to constantly and dynamically assess what we are doing to see whether it is justified and proportionate to what you're doing. So if you're splitting up from your partner and you believe that she's having an affair, then we could put a tracker on that car to see where she goes, to see whether she's meeting somebody and having that affair. Once we've reached the point where we go, all right, yeah, we found her and she's having an affair with this person, then that job is being satisfied. If you turn around and say, Nathan, I want to track her on her car for 6 months because I want to follow her, I want to know exactly what she's doing all the time, that's the point when you go, not quite sure we can justify you having a tracker on your wife's car for 6 months to see exactly what she's doing all the time. And it's about making that risk assessment, and I always liken it to, if I get called to court and they say to me, what was your justification, would I feel comfortable, or would I be papping myself thinking I've gone a bit grey here? So it's the law itself at this moment in time is, yes, you can put a tracker on a vehicle. It's not illegal, but it's when it turns into stalking
or harassment type stuff,
things like that. So you got to be careful.
And what about like listening devices, planting them in people's homes and stuff like that? Is that allowed?
Again, everybody's got a right to privacy. There's the Human Rights Act. There's data protection. There's GDPR. I personally steer away from it.
Right.
I've been asked to put a camera in somebody's bedroom to see whether they're having an affair. I just said no. I mean, flipping it. I mean, like you say, you open yourself up to the Voyeurism Act.
What's that then?
Voyeurism is when you watch somebody engage, either sort of say for example in the swim baths.
Got you.
If you stick your head underneath the side, or you put your camera underneath while somebody's getting changed at the side of you, you're watching somebody without their consent or knowledge, and you're looking at the private parts. That's voyeurism.
Yeah. Okay.
So you need to be aware of things like that. Like I said, there's a whole raft of ways where you can fall down as a private investigator.
Yeah.
So it's dodgy ground. Listening devices, again, you can justify listening devices depending on where you put it. Again, personally, I would more give the advice to the client and say, because let's face it, if you're having an affair, for example, and the person that you're having the affair with is going to come to your home address. When that person comes through the front door, you're either going to go in the kitchen or the lounge. You're going to have a conversation. All right, you might just run quickly upstairs and straight into the bedroom.
Yeah.
But at the point where that person enters and you engage in conversation in the hallway, it's pretty much nailed on that you're having an affair. Yeah. You don't need to hear the oochie goochie stuff to know that it's on. It's like when we follow people to hotels. We will quite often get asked when they're hand in hand walking up to the hotel room, well, can you get the room next door and get a glass to the wall and get me evidence? And you're like, or can you put a camera underneath the door and look at what they're doing? And you're just like, no, you don't. A, no. And two, it's pretty nailed on that if they're in a hotel in the middle of nowhere, they're meant to be at a business meeting, but actually they've just met the person who you suspect they're having an affair of. It's pretty obvious. It doesn't get much more obvious than that. So you have to draw the line somewhere. Yeah.
What percentage of people that contract you in with suspicions of affairs would you say actually are substantiated and end up being an affair? How many do you catch out, basically?
Probably 80-90% are right in what they suspect, and a lot of times they just want the confirmation.
Yeah.
There will be times, a good 50% will be gaslighted, which is a term which, if I suspect you're having an affair, say we're partners, and I'm saying, Luke, you're seeing somebody, I know you are. You then throw it back at me, saying you're only saying that because you're untrustworthy, and you had an affair years ago, and now you're trying to throw it onto me. Or gaslighting is like making things like when you say you were out last week, and you turn around and go, no, I wasn't, and you're like, no, you were, and it's psychological warfare.
Trying to warp the truth, or
So you deal with that quite often as well. But so you're just getting them the answer, so then they can walk away. It's indisputable evidence.
Yeah. Do you work on missing person cases a lot?
Not a lot, and I do work on them, but the problem is the budget. People think that we work for a tenner an hour, and we don't. I do all right out of it, but we're not on minimum wage. At the end of the day, if you come to me, you are getting 27 years worth of experience. Yeah. So people who either work in commercial world, who understand how business works and what you pay for what you get, that they're fine. The problem is that if I get all this police terminology, everybody's Mrs. Miggins. If Mrs. Miggins comes to you and says, I need to track this person down, if you're either charging them an hourly rate or you give them a quote for I think it will take, you can't turn around and say, yeah, I'll find your daughter or your son, it'll take me 40 hours, 40 times my hourly rate is this, pay me that. You just don't know.
Yeah.
And so the problem is you will get investigators who will sort of do cold case reviews, and they'll either do it to promote the business, or they'll do it on a once I've found them, I'll write a book about it and I'll make my money that way. Or there's ways of getting paid, or they'll just do it as a volunteer basis because they've already retired and they've got the money and they don't need the money to do it. The difficulty with live missing persons is it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you've got to then balance whether they can afford it to the result. So it's a difficult one.
Have you had any cold cases that you sort of worked on yourself?
I never did cold case reviews. Whilst being a private investigator, I have had a couple of jobs where I've been assisting the defence. So controversially, recently I've been dealing with defence solicitors with the Asian grooming gangs. It kind of goes against the grain a little bit as a police officer. What people believe are police officers are working for the prosecution, We aren't. We are independent investigators as police officers, and you need to investigate whether it takes you down one avenue or takes you down another avenue. You cannot investigate somebody, and if it shows that they are innocent, you cannot ignore it and only pursue the evidence that shows that they are guilty.
Yep.
You have to pursue all lines, and if you find enough evidence to show that that person is innocent, then you present that to CPS.
Okay.
CPS make that decision then as to whether they charge them and take them to court or not. So obviously doing that for 20 years, I became a detective because I like putting bad people in prison. That was my motivation. So that was me. So to suddenly then work for the defence and saying, can you now look at alibis and witnesses and things like that?
Yeah.
Kind of goes against the grain, and you're like, not really quite comfortable with this. So the way that I justified it is, one, I got paid, being flippant for a minute. But the way that you justify it is well, if I don't do it, somebody else will. But also, who is to say that this person is guilty? Now, if there is evidence out there to prove their innocence, then you obviously hire a defence solicitor in order to do that. It's not, they don't, I mean, in the police, we always like, oh, they got off with it. They didn't get off with, well, they may or may not got off with it.
Some people may have.
Yeah. But there wasn't enough evidence at that time to prove that they were guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the threshold that has to be proven to get conviction, beyond reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
So you might suspect somebody's done it, and we all know that they've done it, but if you can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's what defence prey on, the fact, well, is there a reasonable doubt, yes or no? Right, in that case, then there's not enough evidence to prove it, so they get off with it, or they walk away free until another time. So it was my job to test the evidence and test the alibis and gather evidence, and as a professional, which I'd like to think I am, I will do that without emotion involved to either the victims or the perceived offender or the people involved, because obviously it's a highly emotive matter dealing with the grooming gangs. Highly emotive, so you have to, a lot of what I am and what I've become is I can compartmentalise my emotions, put them in a box. I talk about this in one of my podcasts. I put it in a box, and the box sits at the back of my head, and that box is never opened. And if that box sometimes starts to rattle and the lid's coming off, I make sure I put the lid back down again, and I don't go there for my own preservation. So you have to just do the job and move on. So got a bit deep there, but there you go.
No, it's all good. So say, for example, you're investigating this grooming gang, and obviously it's on the side of the defence to try and figure out if what is being brought forward is true. If you then find evidence that is the contrary, that it is factual, what's been accused, what's then your duty and the defence's duty? Do you know what I mean? Do they have to then present that finding?
Yes, they should.
Right,
they should. They should. Yeah, all findings should be presented. So again, when you prepare police files for prosecution, there are various forms, without being too boring and prescriptive, but there are various forms that sit within the police file, and there will be a form saying this is all the good evidence that we've got, to put it into sort of layperson's terms. This is all the strong evidence. These are all the factors that we've got. However, during our investigation, and then on another sheet of paper will be but watch out for this and watch out for that. So you present the whole case to the prosecutor. The prosecutor will look at it, and then there will be exchanges months in advance of any trial where prosecution and defence exchange these details to each other. So when they come to court, they are not ambushed. If they get ambushed at court unless the evidence only arrives during the trial, the judge will dismiss any evidence that you have held back and say, well, they've not had a proper chance to get an explanation as to what it might be. So you can't just tip up and go, haha, your DNA was on the underpants, so you've done it. The defence will be like, whoa, we don't know anything about that, you can't present it. So although it's a little bit, again, to a lay person, you would, and this is just a made up example, by the way, but if there was, say, DNA in the female's knickers, if you tell the defence that you have that, then clearly the defence are then going to formulate a reason as to why that has happened. So they forewarned is forearmed, so they can then come to court and go, my DNA was on those underpants because, and have an explanation.
Yeah, okay.
Which to a layperson you think, well, that's unfair because clearly they've done it. If we're talking about semen, clearly they've done it because why would my semen be in a girl's knickers if a sexual act hasn't taken place?
Yeah.
But they may come out with an offence of. Sorry to be gruesome, but they may come out with a defence of, well, the night before the offence took place, I masturbated and her knickers were on the floor and I used them to wipe myself down.
Yeah.
It's a valid defence, and as a prosecutor or a layperson, you're like clenching your fist thinking, but you're lying.
Yeah.
But then there'll be other evidence, like say bruising to the inside of the thighs,
Yeah.
or bruising to the vagina, or hand marks on their arms. So there's always the supporting evidence.
Yeah.
Well, I say always, but if you've got all the supporting evidence that goes with it, the defence will pick on certain bits to try and pick holes. But when you look at actually, you're at the right place, the right time, the bruising, the semen, and then the fact that she came out the next morning, was heavily distraught and reported it to her best friend and said he raped me last night. When you look at all of that, that's why you need to have the whole picture, the whole court case, and then you reach a conclusion at the end, not just at certain. So if ever you watch a court case, it's twists and turns all around, but the jury then go in, keep an eye on the whole story, and then go, is there reasonable doubt, yes or no? You might be able to explain why the semen was there, but what about he was there at the time? What about the bruising, the finger marks, the stuff under people's fingernails where they're scratching because they're trying to find. So it's all interesting stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So for a case like that, how long does it generally go on for? Like
years.
So
the NCA, National Crime Agency, which are not they're like police in layman's terms. They've got all the sort of same sort of powers as police, but they're not like the police as such. But they certainly in Sheffield, I think it's called Operation Stovewood. It was called. And that started, I wouldn't want to commit to a date, but it's been ongoing now for 20 years. And what they found was it all started because of complaints of vulnerable white girls predominantly being groomed by these gangs and used for sex purposes. But what they found is that when they were investigating, when they were interviewing the girls would turn around and sort of say, it wasn't just me, so-and-so was there, and it literally just spidered out like that. And so what was meant to be an operation on one particular gang just grew and grew and grew because these vulnerable girls, there was somewhere along the lines tended to be a connection, and then another Asian person. I'm not sort of the gangs that we're dealing with are predominantly Asian, so I'm not being racist when I sort of say Asian.
No, it's just factual.
It's facts. It's Asian men and generally vulnerable young white girls that were given alcohol and drugs and what have you. But what would happen is that because they were driven around the country as well, you'd interview the girl and you think you're investigating a group of people. All of a sudden, you find out she's being transported up the country, and then there's another gang up there. So you investigate that, and that gang's actually been grooming their local girls. So then you're investigating their local girls, and their local girls were shipped somewhere else, and all of a sudden you have a absolutely massive operation,
just a huge network of people.
Which is why I was assisting the defence only. Well, we're in March now, aren't we? So it was last year. I dealt with 2 different cases last year, so it's still ongoing to this day. People are still being investigated.
And you say it went for 20 years? That was when it was started.
I wouldn't want to commit to a date, but certainly I think Stovewood started about 20-something years ago, and it's to my knowledge, it's still going now. And
do you think that, obviously there was this big scandal with it. I think everyone's quite aware of the situation now. Do you think it's still ongoing to the level it was, or do you think it's been stomped out to a degree?
My opinion is I don't think it's going to the same degree that it was because of all the media attention and the fact that it made national news, and it was absolutely massive. And so I think because obviously we're now into the next generation of people. I don't think it's as prevalent as it once was. But I do think there's a lot of middle-aged men out there who are watching the door to see if it gets hoofed in.
Yeah.
And will be worried.
Yeah. So is people still being tracked, do you think? Like still being
Yeah.
Crazy.
Definitely.
Unreal. So on top of this then, what would you say, just so we can get them out there, give me one of your craziest stories that you've worked on as a case?
What I've got, most of my stories are sort of pretty interesting. There was one, we are trying to go down the whole cheating partner front and all that kind of business. Obviously the massage parlour is one of my popular stories. But one of the early investigations that I had was it was shaken baby syndrome, which again was made popular by, her name escapes me now, but again that was 20 odd years ago. There was a British nanny over in America who shook a baby, and the whole trial was trial by media, and it got brought through. Anyway, a long story short, she was found guilty, but for one reason or another, I think she got an absolute minimum sentence and came back to Britain. Pretty much almost identical situation happened about 4 years ago, where a British nanny had gone over, and night one of looking after this baby, lost her temper, shook the baby, threw it onto the bed. Baby's neck is broken, which is why it's so dangerous to shake a baby, because if you don't know, when you have a child, the weight of the head is very heavy, and they don't have the strength in the neck to. That's why whenever you pick a baby up, you always support its head. As a father, you know that. So they've obviously shaken the baby and thrown it onto the bed. It's broken neck. So we were asked to do the investigation on the British side, because obviously the American police. This was in America, so the American police are doing the investigation in respect of that. But we were asked by the family to do the investigation part in England, because there was questions regarding the nanny's CV, because she purported to have worked for various high net worth individuals, including sort of princes in Saudi and oligarchs over in Greece and what have you. This was all on her CV. So we were asked to research and investigate and question people about that. We were asked to question family members. We were asked to look into her mental health, her mental state. And we were also asked to look at the website that was started in this country that advertised, because it was a specific website for nannies for high net worth individuals. So they then wanted to look at possibility of suing the people who have got the website to see what due diligence they do, because it turned out that the website just basically got a CV and hosted it and paid you pay a subscription to host your CV. What due diligence was done? So that was good. And what I liked about that is, as a detective, you're always thinking. I like the cases where you're thinking. Obviously, the surveillance, whilst it's all right, I liken it to having your TV on standby. Certainly what we call the static surveillance, when you sat in your vehicle, you literally just sat there with your eyes open watching an address, and you can be sat there for hours. And it takes a real skill. It might sound stupid, but it takes a real skill to just sit there and remain switched on, looking at a door for hours upon end. For some people, and when you're working late at night, a lot of people say to me, how come you don't fall asleep? I'm one of these people who can only fall asleep when I'm horizontal in a bed in pitch black, in silence. So if I'm sat up, even on planes, I can go 36 hours without sleep. If I'm on a night flight, I just don't sleep, and then I go to sleep the next night. So I'll do that quite often. So I just sit there and you're watching, and then it's literally when the door opens, you're like, oh, right, all action, go. So it's just. So you get the exciting bits, and then you get the dull bits, but then you get the money shot, what we call the money shot at the end, and it's like you've done your job there. Yeah.
Do you feel like you can't sleep upright because of your job, and you've sort of learnt to stay switched on, or do you just think that's something you've always had?
I think it's just me. Yeah, I think it's just me.
Yeah.
That I just don't
Pick
sleep.
Right job then.
Yeah. Although my missus, she can fall asleep within 3 seconds of going horizontal, which has its own problems.
Yeah. Have you ever been like threatened or followed yourself?
Not in the PI world. You do get the odd sort of veiled sort of threat, but so there's this counter surveillance and there's anti surveillance, and most people don't really know the difference. So counter surveillance is when you are finding out who's surveilling you, and then you do something about it, whether it's approach them or shake them or whatever, or just be aware of it and lead them down a garden path that they don't want to do it. Anti-surveillance is when you do things that you are then not followed. So naturally, when I come away from a job, I will do anti-surveillance, and anti-surveillance will be simple things like you go to a roundabout and you go around the roundabout a couple of times. Yeah. And you, because naturally if you are surveilling somebody and they go to a roundabout, depending on how many cars are following you, if you go all the way around a roundabout and you're a bit green and you follow them all the way around a roundabout, you've just blown yourself out. Yeah. So anybody worth the salt who's a surveillance operative will take an exit off the roundabout before doing the full 360. You'll do that. You might, depending on if you're followed by another car, you'll do it and then you'll do it again. And then another car approaches the roundabout and they're like, what's going off here? And then they have to go. And when they've gone off, they then have to find a point to turn around quickly and come back. So I might come home, I'll be looking in my mirror thinking, right, who's following me? That's a red Renault. I'll go to a roundabout. I'll go around a roundabout twice, go off. The red Renault's then driven off. If I then go an half mile down the road and there's a red Renault behind me again, I'm like, that's a bit strange. So then you might drive, you have to do this under certain circumstances, but you might drive into a dead end. Who follows you into a dead end? Yeah. Oh, look, that red Renault's just driven into a dead end. And then you turn around, you come back out. If Mr. Red Renault comes out and follows you, you're like, yeah, I'm being followed. Yeah. So there's certain things that I do.
So have you been followed yourself then?
No.
No.
Or if I have, I've shaken them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Put it that way. So yeah, you tend to, I think it's just, again, it kind of comes with experience, even like when you're doing sort of foot followers. I'm aware, it just what I do for a living, I have to be extremely aware of my surroundings and who's around. I don't just like, if we were in a cafe now, some of the things I talk about is when I go into a cafe or a restaurant, I always sit with my back to the wall so I can see who's coming in. It's a safety thing because as a cop, the last thing you want to do is somebody come up behind you and smack you back at the head. So I would always sit with my back to the wall and see everything. So if we were talking now, I'm constantly like looking over your shoulder at who's there, and I'll be looking at people. And then if we leave, if I then see the same person further down the street, you're like, hold on a minute, I've already seen you once. So there's just certain things that I do and I don't ever switch off from. It's just who I am.
Do you think that sort of almost like because of your job leads into like almost paranoia? Or is, yeah.
It's also it's for your safety, and it's also for your job to be switched on and alert at all times. So there's a safety element part of it, but there's nothing worse if you were a cop walking down the road and something's happening, there's a domestic violence happening over there, or there's a shoplifter over there, or something going off, and you're just like walking that street with your mate talking about football, and you completely see it. So it's just to be good at the job. It's a skill that you have to have. Yeah, I think.
Do you ever have people, once you've rumbled them, try and get revenge? Do you know what I mean? Did they ever find out who you are and try and get back at you or anything like that?
Touch wood. So far, no. Because at the end of the day, it's a job that I'm doing. I've had people gone, like, you effing and jeffing, you've caught me, you've caused this. It's like, well, I haven't caused it. I'm not the one who's having the affair. Yeah. I'm just the one who provided the evidence and provided the report of you having the affair. So if you're angry, you need to direct that anger at yourself, and you need to look at yourself. If it hadn't been me, it'd have been somebody else who'd have caught you. And I don't take it personally. I got paid to do a job. I don't do it because I like watching people and catching people out and going ha ha ha. And something else is what you don't realise is that you form a relationship with a client who suspects their partner is having an affair. There is a relationship and a bond that is created. There is nothing worse than getting on with your client, and then I've had it lifetime where I'm texting a client and we're sort of having a jovial conversation, and then all of a sudden I see a car arrive and it's like, right, hold on a minute, drop that. Car's arrived, woman gets out, goes down to the drive, goes into the house of the male partner who she suspects is having an affair. And suddenly that conversation just went from, yeah, ha, 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 to, yeah, female's just turned up. And it was like a boom, like a lead balloon, and she was absolutely gutted, distraught. And you're like, so you might think, oh, it's great doing all this sexy stuff, but then you got the human emotions involved as well. And you got to manage
deliver that news.
Yeah. It's like a death warning when you go around to somebody's house and ruin the world by saying somebody who they love intently has just died. That's another thing that you have to do as a cop. Yeah,
that's not good. Have you ever had anyone that you've like sort of rumbled and they've tried to bribe you to get you to go another way or anything like that?
I've had one who tried to try it on with a lie detector test, who wanted me to fake the results.
What they wanted to. Go on, explain that to
me. So that again, this was an affair. And they agreed to do a lie detector test and then said, but actually I did have the affair, so when you do the results, can you fudge it to make it look like I didn't? It's like, no. No, that's a little bit...
So I take it they didn't do the test in the end?
No, well, they didn't, not through me.
Yeah.
Like I said, but there's companies out there, and the problem in business is that there will be people out there who will take money. Because they're all about the money, but for me, no.
So you'd not done any previous work for them?
No.
They just contacted you out at blue and said, want a polygraph, but I want you to lie about it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. So out of these, cheating partners, people who contract you in, is it mainly women that are bringing you in to catch their husbands, or is it mainly men with women?
It's about 50-50.
Is it?
Yeah, it's about 50-50.
That's interesting.
Yeah, days are gone now where it's just the man. It's about 50-50, the affair thing.
Yeah. And have you ever had a situation where sort of halfway through an investigation you've had to walk away for any reason, or?
Yes. Obviously, I'm going to keep referencing my own podcast, Diary of a Private Investigator.
Yeah.
All these stories are told out in full. But there was one that started off... It started off as an investigation into something to do with finance, and whether I was told that four individuals were being investigated by the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, I think that's the right terminology.
Yeah.
So they were being investigated, and part of the conditions is they are not to communicate with each other. The client believed that they were still communicating with each other, and it was affecting his business. Could I investigate them? So again, is it justifiable? Is it proportionate what we're doing? Yes. You go through your checklist, you do it. Right, okay, this sounds like a genuine job, we'll do it. It starts off with, it was one of those jobs where it's too good to be true. We need trackers on all the cars, we need surveillance on all the people, turn into a big job, lots of money, great, you're like, this is brilliant. And anyway, all very, very, very quickly, it suddenly turned into, actually, we don't need all the trackers, we don't need all the surveillance, we need to concentrate on one particular party. And it turned out this one particular party that the concentration was a female. My client's male. So like I said, this was over time, over weeks and months. So we start doing the surveillance just on the woman, and then it turns into, again, I tell this story, but it turns into, can you go through her bin and look to see if there's any correspondence in the bin? Now, again, having a law background, you know that you cannot look at anything that has legal privilege. So if there's any solicitor's letters or anything like that, you can't read. You can't even look at it to read it. You can't read and go, oh, that were interesting. Pretend you haven't, which I got asked to do, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So and then obviously you got then consider the Theft Act. That if I start going through somebody's bin and take stuff away, although it's rubbish, it could be construed as theft. Even though you put it out as rubbish, you're not giving me consent to go through your bin and take your stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to consider that. You have to consider whether it's trespass if you're going to go onto the drive and move the bin. So you have to wait for the bin to be on a public highway. So there's all these millions. Then you've got the uncomfortableness of, what the hell am I actually doing? So I'm going out in the middle of the night to pick somebody's green bin up, or brown bin, or whatever colour it was, to then carry it down the road into the woods, to then go through the bin, to then look for any correspondence between these people, and then carry the bin back. Like I said, I tell this story in a comedy way on my own podcast, but what the hell am I doing? Put it back, and then it turned into a tree cam. We had a tree cam watching the address, and then it was over time, and I was getting less and less and less comfortable with what I was doing, and it kind of dawned on me thinking that actually I suspect that the female is the ex-partner of the client who's come out with this big ruse of, oh, we need to watch this because it's an investigation and this, that and the other, but clearly they're just interested in whether she has a new partner or not, and it was starting to go down a path that I was not comfortable with, and so I turned around and said, no longer working for you, to which he did not like at all. And he was like, no, I think you'll find that you are working for me, and I think that you'll find that you will give me the footage from the tree cam. And I said, and I sat there, and my heart was, again, I'm not a business person, but the whole point of having your own business and being self-employed is because you pick and choose who you want to work for.
Definitely.
And I didn't want to work for him, and I was sat there, and my heart was racing. I was thinking, what should I do? And I was like, no, this is why you have your own business. That if you get somebody you don't want to work for, you just tell them.
Yeah.
So I gave it a couple of hours, thought about it, assimilated it, all the information, came back to the laptop, typed it out and said, no, I think you'll find that you're not getting the footage because I don't think it's justifiable, and I think we got GDPR to present. He was asking me to send the SIM cards to a PO box.
Right.
And it was like I said, there was lots of little red flags which slowly grew, but it got to the point where can we send this footage to a PO box a couple of 100 miles down the country? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
He says, I'll come to your office, and I'll walk into your office, or I'll walk into your home address, and I will hand them to you. But I'm not posting them out to a PO box in the middle of nowhere. That's just no.
Was this like a corporate job then?
Yeah, it started off as a corporate job.
Yeah. What do you think it ultimately turned out to be? Like, do you think the motive was corporate, or do you think it was something more sinister?
I think it was going down the route of it was an ex-partner because it was a lone female. But the other three people were males who were in jobs where the FCA would legitimately investigate them, and then a female whose job I never found out. So I reached the conclusion that he thought that one of these three males was having an affair with his ex-partner.
Got you.
And so that was his original motivation. Now, if he'd have said that, I'd have probably still taken the job on.
Yeah.
But it was just all the little things that I was doing. I was like, well, I'm uncomfortable doing the bin search. I'm uncomfortable. I mean, the tree cam, yeah, fair enough, you can get away with that. There's other bits and bobs that you're like, yeah, but then it just reached a point where I was just like, no, there's too much here now that I am uncomfortable with. And like I said right at the start of this podcast, I've got to know that if I get put in front of a courtroom, why did you do this? I need to know I'm comfortable justifying it. And I got to that point where I'm not comfortable. So
yeah, no, sounds the right decision.
But he wasn't happy.
No, I can believe he weren't.
Yeah.
So you sort of said at the start of that you thought it was going to be a big job. What's sort of like some of the biggest jobs you've had, or the biggest?
As a private investigator, so there's lots of companies out there, and my main income from people, I do a lot of private work. So again, you talk about the budget. So the commercial sort of stuff is the bigger work. But I mean, I've done a job where you're looking at a director of a company over a matter of months, who in his simplest terminology was swinging the lead. Right. They were basically earning a director's wage and doing absolute bugger all. And they were on the golf course 2-3 days a week, and he was putting it down to networking. He was just golfing. Yeah. So I told about this with the drone going up, the drone following him around the golf course, laughing and joking in the clubhouse. But it went on for months because what they didn't want to do as a company is do it for a week, see that he's taking the mick for 1 week, bring him in, and then he just gets clever with it and just gets, because he was well known, he was swinging the lead. But if you present too early, all people do are just more careful. They're kind of doing it, but they're just more careful in how they're doing it. But also, you would give away the tactics of surveillance. Yeah. So my job is 10 times harder when somebody suspects or has caught somebody doing surveillance. Like I said to you before, the tapes went on. Tapes? How old am I? Before the digital cameras went on. With surveillance, it's like I always say, it's like brain surgery. You can mess it up once, and that's it. You're done. So I will get people coming to me saying, "Oh, I hired another company and they got caught. Can I come to you?" Or or often I've done it myself and he caught me, so I'm coming to you. And you're like, okay, so what we now need to understand is you made my job 10 times harder. This person's now surveillance aware, therefore we have to adapt our tactics, and we need more operators on the ground, because we need to be either further away, or we need trigger cams so we're off plot and there's a trigger cam watching the address. There's all sorts of factors now that I need to consider over and above if you'd have just come to me and said, "I suspect this is happening and I need to hire you."
Yeah.
So this.
Very good. Matt, do you have any questions?
How do you charge? So do you charge a hourly rate? Do you charge a day rate?
Or does price work?
Do you get because obviously you don't know how long an investigation is going to go on. So when a potential client comes to you, do you give them an estimate, and then what's the chance of you going over that estimate? Like how do you charge your clients?
In its simplest format, I charge an hourly rate, and what I will do. So the way that I personally do it is, no job is the same. Even though, let's just say cheating partner as an example, just because it's bread and butter and it's the simplest job to explain. I've set phrases that I say all the time, and one of them is investigation surveillance is like a jigsaw. Sometimes we'll solve the jigsaw in one sitting. Sometimes we put some pieces on, but we need to come back another day, put some more pieces on. So I sell it to them like that, and I say, what we'll do is I take payment up, going onto the business side of things. I will always take payment first, because there are people out there that will ask you to do the work, and if they are not happy with the result, i.e. you've caught them, or the evidence presents that they're not having an affair, and they are not satisfied, not with the work, but with the result, they don't pay you.
Yeah.
So I learned very, very quickly that before I turn a wheel, I get paid first. So I will get paid. So what I will do is say, we will dynamically risk assess it as we go along. You pay for this deployment, and then at the end of the deployment, so at some point afterwards, we will sit down and have another conversation. I will tell you what I've seen, you'll get a report, and then we then make a decision as to whether you need me to go back and do more, or whether we've caught them on the first occasion, or whatever. So yeah. I do it that way.
So do you make them sort of pay? So do you estimate how many hours it's going to take you, for example, based on your previous work, and then they pay for the project up front almost? And
no, it's literally a case. So you might have, for example, I've had a job where Mr. X is going to London on a train on a business meeting. We think he's having an affair. So that might be going to the train station, doing the follow from the train station, getting on the train. You don't really know how long it's going to take, so you would sort of say roughly that job might. So I work for a minimum of 4 hours. So I will say to people, my pricing structure is quite simple. I'll do a minimum of 4 hours, because I don't charge for travelling, I don't charge for mileage, I don't charge for anything else. It's literally is X amount of pounds per hour. You can have me for 8 hours, you can have me for 24 hours if you want to. But being realistically, what I always come back and say, well, what's your objective? Because a lot of people will get lost in what the objective is. They'll do it, and then they'll go, oh, actually, can you find this out? Oh, actually, can you do that? And I'll go, yeah, I can. But what's your objective? Because when you first came to me, the objective was, is this person doing this thing? And now you're getting a bit clouded, because some clients get a bit excited about what we do. And they like the power game of you. I've got you following this person. This is quite exciting, and they'll get you to do more. And like I said to you, it always comes back to: is it justified, or is it proportionate what we're doing? If they're going to go off and if I'm dealing with a child case, but they're off seeing another partner, well, you hired me to see whether he was abusing the kids, not to see who he's having an affair with or who he's now seeing or something like that. So you have to remain focused. So I will do minimum hours. I'll blank the day out, because inevitably what will happen is that at hour 3 hours and 50 minutes something happens, and if I then turn around and go, yep, that's me, I'm off, see you later, I'd be like, whoa. So I generally block the day out, and then if we need to extend, we can extend. If not, I cap it off at 4 hours, but I will work for whatever. So we'll have that discussion. So the London example, I will say, pay me for the 8 hours, and then if it if I'm done in 6, then I'll either refund you the 2 hours, or we bank the 2 hours, and the next time you want me, we'll add it to that budget.
Yeah.
But then I've had one customer where I've done that for, and they're like, yeah, can I just need you for 2 hours to drive up there to do this and come back? And you're like, no, go back to my contract. It says minimum working 4 hours.
Yeah.
But I only need you for an hour. Yeah, but I'm not charging you for travel time there. I'm not charging you travel time back. I'm not charging you petrol money, and I'm not charging you for me to sit down and do your report. So I won't work for a couple of hours. It needs to be the full 4 hours to cover it all. So I'm comfortable. I think that's fair.
Yeah, no, I think so.
Yeah, good, thanks. Is AI affecting your industry at all? Do you use any AI tools, or are you concerned about anything in the future, like deep fakes and things like that, like false information, like things like that? Or is that not something that you're concerned about?
So as I've always already touched upon, I am a person of a certain generation, and I am not super computer literate. So in respect of AI, so things like so the way that I explain it is, so things like a tracker on a car, I say to the client, that is intelligence, what we class as intelligence. It tells us where that car is going. The evidence is the photographic evidence of that person doing X thing. So you cannot just supply a tracker report saying that car was doing this, that and the other, so therefore they're guilty of doing what we're trying to investigate. All we're saying is that the car was there. So you will always need a physical presence to do the surveillance to follow. In respect of sort of CCTV, the powers that private investigators have to see CCTV is extremely limited. Businesses will more often than not turn around and just say, no, you're not having the CCTV. As a cop, it was great, because as a cop you go in and you'd be like, investigating this, let me have a look at CCTV. They turn around and say, no, you have a power to seize the CCTV as evidence. You can see whatever you want within reason as evidence. So you just turn around and go, okay, I'm going to take your CCTV. And then they turn around and go, can you do that? Yeah. In that case, then I'll burn you a copy off of what you need, and then so you get your evidence. As a PI, they don't do that. So in respect of the AI of doing the job, I think there'll be certain elements where it will affect, but ultimately you're still going to need people on the ground doing what we're doing. As a website, I've read somebody's website that has clearly been generated by AI, and I think we are at the point in time where intelligent people will be able to tell the difference between something that's been written by a person and what's just been spewed out by AI. It just sounds different, wrong, and garbage. I had a copywriter working for me, and they were very, very good, and they would write my articles on what I wanted to write, but I would always have to go in, check it, and put different legislation in, because sometimes the AI at the time was talking about how would the Americans do it, and I've got a pet hate regarding a Z or an S, because the Americans use an S and we use a Z, so that gets me back up. So I would always go in and rewrite it and then come back and go, right, now use that. Yeah. So it probably may affect, but for me, I'm not concerned.
What's the competition like? What's the market like for private investigators? So you are a freelancer, independent contractor. Yeah. Are there like big companies that have a lot of investigators working for them, and they like a national thing, or are most in private investigators just independent guys like yourself?
Right. So most of the companies out there, I say most, but a lot of the companies out there are like me, where we are sole traders, one person setups, or a couple of people. You might get people who are sort of teams of 2, teams of 4 as a business that do the surveillance. Like I said, most of us know each other. Most of us will assist each other. So if I got a big job in tomorrow, I have people that I can use to bring in to work for me. There are some companies out there, like I said, purport to have a box of 100 detectives all sat at home waiting for the next big job to go out, and some of it's smoke and mirrors. There are a couple of companies out there who hire people, and they tend to be the companies who have got permanent contracts from other large companies, so they'll get a sustained amount of work, so therefore they have a sustained number of staff. But certainly if you Google, my main selling point, which is I've kind of put across today, is if you come to Wildest Investigations, 9 times out of 10 you will get me. So when I advertise on my website 27 years worth of experience, you will get me, and I've got 27 years experience. With some of the websites out there, they'll say the same thing, but you will maybe speak to a receptionist or a telemarketer, or somebody with the headsets on who does it for a living, and then you will then get somebody who's been on a course, and most of the money goes to the person who owns the company, but actually you're not getting the person on the ground doing it. So with dollars, you get me.
Perfect. I'm good. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks again, Nathan, for coming on.
Yeah,
and
no
hope to speak to you again.
All right, Paul. No
Good
worries.
man. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Matt.